The Mating School by Jonas Mears. Chapters 37 and 38. Chapter 37. The second level was different than the rest of the school. Lily and Anne had only seen a small section on their first visit to retrieve the prophecy. It had a much more open and futuristic feel to it. The floors were paved with cobblestone, and one wall of the overlarge corridor was entirely a window that let in a bright view of the edge of the lake. The room Lily was taken to was a large meeting space with a long wooden table and chairs. It was too big of a room, it seemed, for just the four of them. Mrs. Burnett and two men who'd introduced themselves as Mr. Hatchett and Mr. Richardson. Apparently in this company she wasn't Lily, but rather Miss Ikenna. It seemed cold somehow. If they were there to be friendly and create allies, then why did they say Anne couldn't come? Why were they Mr. Richardson when he might have been just Mark? A potential new friend and ally? Assuming Mark was his first name. I'd rather have respect than just a title, thought Lily. Miss Ikenna, thank you for coming, said Mr. Hatchett. We'd hoped you might have come sooner to establish allegiance to the ruling committee. A lot was going on, said Lily. I didn't know it was expected of me, and I didn't even know about the situation until recently. That's understandable, said Mr. Richardson. But seeing how devastating it would be to the shifter and lichen societies if things didn't work out favorably, I would have thought you would have made this more of a priority. With respect, said Lily. I didn't know what I didn't know, and our new relationship shouldn't be rooted in the doubt caused by not knowing. That's understood, said Mr. Hatchett. But it's been months. I know you're new to the field of politics, Miss Ikenna, but things move fast here, and waits like that, in the future, will not be interpreted kindly. Lily didn't say anything. What could she say? This wasn't a good way to create a new ally in her mind. With reprimanding, she didn't do anything wrong. This response may seem harsh, said Mrs. Burnett. We understand that you've been working to adapt to your new abilities, but we hope that you understand how meticulous the situation is and how it would impact such a vast amount of people if the lichen situation didn't work out amicably. It sure would be unfortunate if it wasn't amicable, said Lily, feeling the situation wasn't amicable at all. Sure, they might be heading the current government and the school, but that didn't mean she wasn't deserving of respect and kindness. Very well, said Mrs. Burnett. We'll not speak again of the delay in establishing our union. Please do have a seat. Moving forward, things are rather straightforward, said Mr. Richardson, as they got settled. Mr. Hatchett, you have the document? It is here, he said, sliding it to where Lily sat. It was large and square, and there was a faint smell of peppermint. Lily leaned a bit closer to try to read it. The print was small, which wouldn't have been a problem for any shifter, but for some reason, it was hard to read, as if focusing on the words caused the lines in the letters to wiggle a bit and start to reshape themselves. Go ahead, dear, said Mrs. Burnett. You'll have to sign at the bottom. Lily picked up the paper as Mrs. Burnett suggested. It was thick and stiff like parchment. The scent was overwhelming, and it made her feel odd. Why would a government body have oversized scented contracts? They'd be hard to file, it seems. Were all the documents scented also? Maybe with different scents. Lily imagined an intern attempting to file them all, and how the smell of so many mixed scents would become a mixed pot of chaos. She nearly laughed, but caught herself. She looked up, and the other three people, the government officials, and it all seemed so odd to her. They all sat perched in their chairs so tensely, and the view of the lake beyond the window glistening in the clear blue sky of summer. She imagined how the sun would feel on her skin and how the fresh grass would smell. And instead, here she was, in this cold room, in a meeting she wasn't understanding, needing to sign a document that she couldn't seem to read, in a tense atmosphere that was so thick that it felt like she could have cut it with a razor blade. Like cutting through paper. like a paper heart she'd cut out once when she was so young to give to a friend. She looked down at the paper again. Did she have to sign it? They'd be angry if she didn't, and yet they are the government, and she'd done nothing wrong. And yet the echo of the prophecy played in her mind. The memory of her and Anne finding it seemed like such a long time ago. The raspy words of the prophecy warbled out of the glass orb like a music box playing near a child's crib in a nursery. She will unite with states before, or there will follow brutal war, and friendship will be nevermore. Maybe her being here at all could be defined as her uniting. She'd had every intention to be amicable. Did they? She picked up the metal pen. It felt icy between her fingers. She'd have to at least seem amicable. So with a heavy heart, she scribbled a random loopy scratch on the line. Surely the agreement wouldn't be binding if it wasn't her name or signature on the document. She felt it was the best she could do given the situation. Not realizing what she'd done, the others seemed to heave a sigh of relief as one. Thank you, Miss Ikenna. Chapter 38. I didn't think they would take it that far, said Anne, picking at her smallest fingernail. They were in a study room on the 4th floor. It was a plain room with a wooden finish and a large plain work table at one end. It seemed an ironic thing to Lily at the moment, to think about students working here, sitting and finishing an essay before their next class. It seemed a world away somehow now, after talking to government officials, after they attempted to use magic to bind her free will. Yeah, well, they did, she said to Lily. Tried to trick me into it. That's one heck of a way to try to establish trust with a new alliance. I didn't think they would take it that far, said Anne again. Honestly, I thought that it was the best option. I don't understand, though, said Lily. The prophecy made it seem like it was the best option. It made it seem like my going there was the only option. And now. She didn't know how to finish the thought. Now what? What exactly were the consequences of the contract? Prophecies are like that, though, said Anne. Generally, they never work out the way we expect. Maybe you needed the binding magic in order to see that the governing body is not someone I can trust or work with. Lily finished for her. How could this have gone so wrong? Said Anne, turning to look at the wall, as if the organic pattern of the wood grain would help to anchor her mind enough to make sense of the situation. I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't think they'd do that. I wouldn't have gone through with their plan if I had known. What plan? Said Lily. The plan that I'm not allowed to talk about, said Anne. She looked down at the stone floor as if to hide her shame. That's useful, said Lily. She didn't mean to say it unkindly, but it did come out in a less than kind way. She couldn't help it. It seemed like things had gone from bad to worse. It was hard enough working to try to control all the new powers. And now what? She had a government to take down? If she couldn't be free, what choice did she have? Wait, no, said Anne, sounding worried. I'm on your side. You know that, right? You mean when you're not doing the government's bidding? I mean, I made a mistake, said Anne. I thought they were right to do what was in the best interest of the greater good. But they made a mistake. And I made a mistake in trusting them, for having faith that they would know what was in the best interest of the community at large. Lily looked at her. She'd wondered for a long time now how much she should trust Anne. And now, was this a ruse? I can prove my loyalty to you, Lily, said Anne as if reading her mind. I can't tell you of the plan, but that doesn't mean there aren't other ways to potentially communicate the information. That information and more. You want to play charades at a time like this? Said Lily. Part 2. Okay, said Lily, turning to a blank page in her notebook, where she'd been trying to figure out the information Anne was trying to share. They'd gone through several systems in hopes of conveying the information, including many coded messaging systems, in an attempt to find a way that Anne could pass the information. "So you're saying there are two prophecies?" "Technically," said Anne. "Technically," said Lily, wondering what that could mean. "Maybe," said Anne with a finger on her temple in thought. The light from the windows had gotten dark with the approach of night, and only the artificial ceiling lights illuminated the practice room. They were surely out after curfew, but neither seemed to care. "Have you ever gotten a diamond?" And then, "What might you think?" "I'd think," said Lily. "I'd think this is weird." Anne giggled. She couldn't help it. They'd been at it for hours. It would be pretty weird. Maybe if you had an amazing dream and it seemed so real, then you might think. "Is it real?" said Lily. "Yes," said Anne. "So, are the prophecies real?" said Lily. Her blood seemed to run cold. "But you mentioned one on our way to school, so one must be real." "That's right," said Anne. "So you see my mistake then?" "What I agreed to do." Lily pondered for a moment. "The prophecy we went to get was fake?" Anne only nodded, as if encouraging Lily to continue. "So, I didn't need to meet with the officials. They wanted me to. Because they didn't trust me, or my disinterest in politics." "Which means," said Anne. "I'm not sure, really," said Lily. "I guess it means there's a second prophecy, and as such, it might not pertain to me at all." She should feel such relief at the thought. Anne bit her lip. "You know the real prophecy?" Lily said. "I don't think you'll like it, Lily.